I don't think I've said this enough. This is the best time to be a visual novel fan for people who enjoy English translations because in the last 5 years or so, we've been getting many great fan and official translations left and right. In this video, I want to talk about my personal top 10 most anticipated visual novel translations that have gotten announced and that I think will have a decent chance of releasing in 2024. At number 10, I have Tsui no Sora Remake, originally developed and written by Skaji and will be fan translated by a group called EN Sky. As the name implies, this will be a remake of a visual novel called Tsui no Sora, which was originally developed way back in the late 90s. However, a fun thing to note is that the original Tsui no Sora had many of its plot beats used in Tsubahibi or Wonderful Everyday, making Tsubahibi a pseudo-remake or sequel of sorts to Tsui no Sora. So having the original Tsui no Sora getting a more faithful remake with modernized graphics and such is quite interesting. I admittedly was not a fan of Tsubahibi and dropped it fairly early because I was not a fan of its pacing and its weird use of supernatural elements as foreshadowing. However, when I read reviews of Tsui no Sora Remake and heard that the story was a lot more grounded, which is what I honestly originally wanted from Tsubahibi, a grounded psychological horror with occasional philosophy, I hope with this remake I will indeed get that. At number 9, I have If My Heart Had Wings or Konosora Snow Presence. This was developed by Pulltop and will be fan translated by Snowy Ryujin Translations. If My Heart Had Wings or Konosora Snow Presence is another fan disc in the If My Heart Had Wings series, this time being a true sequel to Kotori's route from Flight Diary. Since Flight Diary had a lot of closure for both Kotori and Aoi graduating as well as the future of the Soaring Club, it appears this Snow Presence fan disc is a more typical moege fan disc with pure slice of life romance. While Kotori isn't my personal favorite heroine from the If My Heart Had Wings series, I definitely still like her enough to be interested enough in a post-high school romance continuation with her and Aoi. The other kind of interesting thing about Snow Presence is that it uses animated models and sprites. I have mixed feelings about this. It kind of seems like Pulltop was kind of experimenting to see if this graphical style would be something they would want to use going forward, and spoiler alert, looks like they really didn't. But even with the graphics thing aside, I am still pretty interested in reading this Snow Presence since I'm always down for more Kono Asta and Pulltop wholesome romance. At number 8, I have Senmono or Sen no Hato Tsukisoi no Koki, developed by August and being fan translated by Operation Bellflower. After Ayako no Yusuya's translation leak last year, I'm sure many people are looking forward to more of August's more plot-heavy visual novels, and Senmono seems to fit that itch for me. It'll apparently have a fantasy setting once again, as well as having a ladder route structure, my personal favorite type of route structure for plot-heavy visual novels. And interesting to note about this upcoming fan translation is that apparently the translator translated the whole text so quickly that the admins on VNDB and other places assumed he was using machine translation or something and proceeded to mark it as such on VNDB as a machine translation. But is it actually true? I'm interested to see once it releases. I'm decently acquainted with the editor, and he claims it's not a machine translation, so we will see. At number 7, I have The Colorful World, originally known as Iroseka or Irotori no Sekai. This is a visual novel developed by Favorite and is being officially translated by Nekonyan. After Soul Press made a Kickstarter of this visual novel before eventually essentially closing down, it was nice for Nekonyan to pick it back up, and it seems to be on track to releasing within a few months. It helps that Iroseka is some of the Nekonyan's team's favorite visual novels to read in Japanese. I'm decently excited to read Iroseka because it's by the same company who wrote Hoshimemo, or Hoshizora no Memoria, and Favorite in general has really good art style. However, Hoshimemo had some writing issues for me, mostly related to the comedy and pacing, but thankfully it seems that The Colorful World or Iroseka is going to have a different writer compared to Hoshimemo. More specifically, it's the one who eventually wrote Sakura Moyu, one of the highest rated Nakige on Edo Gamescape, aka Japan's VNDB. The Iroseka series is also just generally well praised on its own, so I'm hoping to enjoy it as a teaser of sorts for an hopeful eventual Sakura Moyu translation, and to hopefully experience it as a better version of Hoshimemo with less of Hoshimemo's flaws. At number 6, I have The Shell Part 2 or Kara no Shoujo, the second episode. This was developed by Innocent Gray and will be translated by Shirvune. This might be a surprising one to have on this list because Manga Gamer already has their own translation of Kara no Shoujo 2 many years ago. However, there's a few reasons why I'm very willing to support this version. One, there's apparently a prologue in this version of The Shell Part 2 that'll actually have a good translation similar to how Shirvune released The Shell Part 1. Reason number 2 is that Kara no Shoujo 2 for some reason was not able to get on Steam when owned by Manga Gamer. Shirofune seems like they're a bit more clever in finding ways to get even the most lewd titles like NUKITASHI to get on Steam, and just have a big 18+ patch to restore the content. Reason number 3 is just I've been very supportive of Shirofune in general with their huge amount of releases in the last few years, and considering that they also have the license to Kara no Shoujo 3, or The Shell Part 3, I think it would be nice to help support this version of The Shell Part 2 to hopefully get The Shell Part 3 out faster, since that does not have a translation yet at all. I personally recently read The Shell Part 1, and it's very nice to finally scratch that itch of a good murder mystery that I've been waiting for a long time, and having this trilogy finally be fully translated is enough motivation for me to support this eventual Shell Part 2 that's been announced. Admittedly, this is the one entry on my top 10 list that does not have a confirmed 2024 release date yet, but considering how fast Shirofune is with releasing popular series, I could consider The Shell Part 2 releasing sometime towards the end of 2024. At number 5, I have Amazing Grace, What Color Is Your Attribute, developed by Cabbagesoft and will be translated by Shirofune. This is apparently a multi-route mystery visual novel, and as I just said in The Shell Part 2, I'm always down for a good mystery, and I'm glad to have at least one confirmed mystery title for 2024, which is the main reason I have it over The Shell Part 2. Amazing Grace was apparently supposed to release in late 2023, but eventually got pushed to Q2 of 2024. Not sure what the reason for that is, but outside of the pretty high ratings I've seen for Amazing Grace on Arrow Gamescape, I admittedly do not know much about it, and looking to keep it that way since mysteries, in particular stories, I like to know as little as possible before reading. At number 4, I have Criminal Border, Second Offense, and hopefully with an extra dose of hopium, Third Offense. This is developed by Purplesoft and translated by Shirofune. Criminal Border First Offense was the biggest pleasant surprise read for 2023 for me. In addition to mystery visual novels, which I talked about in the latest 2 entries, another genre of visual novels I quite like but rarely see are psychological thrillers. Criminal Border more than fulfilled that itch in episode 1, being one of the most gritty and well-paced, unique settings I've seen while still being fairly down to earth. Criminal Border First Offense ended on something of a cliffhanger, so it's nice to know that within 4 to 5 months after First Offense, we will be getting the second one pretty quickly, which is pretty nice. While the first Criminal Border focused on Hina, it appears that Second Offense will focus more on Kotsuko, a character we saw maybe for like 15 minutes tops in the original, and she seems like a potentially interesting character, so I'm interested to see how she turns out, as well as the continuing development of Itsuki, a main character I ended up liking a lot more than I was expecting to. At number 3, I have Rewrite Harvest Festa, originally developed by Key and will be translated by Sekai Project. As many longtime fans and friends of me know, I've been a huge fan of Kotori from Rewrite for a very long time, so it's natural to have this sequel fan disc on this list. You also may be surprised that this entry is on this list since there was a leaked fan translation for Harvest Festa sometime in 2023. While I did consider reading that version, I spent way too much on the Rewrite Kickstarter to not eventually read everything eventually coming out from that Kickstarter. Also, I personally think the original fan translation can be kind of rough around the edges and being too literal at some points. Also, the leaked fan translation for Harvest Festa apparently does not have a full translation for Rewrite Quest, which is one of the big draws of it. I'm hoping with this new version by Sekai Project, they can release Harvest Festa without any of the mini issues prevailing the original Rewrite Plus release. At number 2, I have Aoi Tori, developed by Purplesoft, which will be translated by Nekoneon. Purplesoft in the last few years has slowly jumped up to my top 10, possibly even top 5 favorite visual novel developers of all time. I loved Amatsutsumi. As said earlier, Criminal Border First Offense was one of the biggest pleasant surprises of 2023. I thought Kunado Chronicles was underrated and had a great setting, and Chrono Clock at least had a fun gimmick and good common route. Aoi Tori is apparently both in the same universe as Amatsutsumi, as well as having the same writer, Mikage. It's not going to have a ladder out structure unlike Amatsutsumi, which does kind of disappoint me since that was one of the biggest things that helped Amatsutsumi and to a lesser extent Kunado Chronicles be great. But if Mikage, the writer, can make the story, characters, and drama just as good as Amatsutsumi, that's more than enough to hype me up. If Aoi Tori turns out to be as good or even better as I'm hoping it to be, I could easily see Purplesoft jumping up to my top 3 favorite visual novel developers ever. Finally, at number 1, I have NUKITASHI 2, developed by Krupo and translated by Shirofune. As I've stated in a couple of videos in late 2023, NUKITASHI 1 has since become a top 3 favorite visual novel of mine, and naturally this means I'm looking forward to its true sequel. In addition to a sequel route to the true ending of NUKITASHI 1 with new unique themes, It's going to have after stories for all the main NLNS girls who are some of my favorite female characters in visual novels to date. NUKITASHI 1 is also just one of the funniest visual novels I've ever read, and NUKITASHI 2 is looking to continue and possibly even improve upon that, which is definitely something I'm looking forward to as someone is a big fan of goofy, over-the-top comedy. I suppose I'm kinda interested in the routes for the big three SS girls, but I'm much more interested in the NLNS girl routes and the new plot. And that is it, my personal top 10 visual novel translations I'm looking forward to most that are decently likely to release in 2024. What are your thoughts on the visual novels that I chose, and what are some visual novel English translations that you are expecting to see in 2024 that you're hyped for? Feel free to leave a comment below.